Hello, my name is Kenley Turville and I'm a senior here at Claremont McKenna College. We're here today as part of the President's Leaders Forum, and joining me today is Dr. Rukmini Banerji from Pratham, India's largest nonprofit and the recipient of the 2010 Henry R. Kravis Prize in Leadership. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please tell me a little bit about Pratham.
We are a large group. We work in primary education in India. The word Pratham means first or primary or priority, and we think that having every child in school and learning well should be India's top priority. We do a number of different things. Very broadly, three kinds of activities. One is we work directly with communities where we organize and provide and monitor different kinds of educational services, preschools, libraries, remedial programs, learning support of different kinds. The second is our big sort of flagship program called Read India. The goal of Read India is that all Indian children should be reading, and we do this both through village communities, via volunteers in villages, as well as through the school systems. And the idea here is to catalyze the resources that exist within our communities and our schools to reach these very big, broad, ambitious goals. And the third activity is an annual survey we do every year across the country. And this survey is called the Annual Status of Education Report. The acronym is ASER, ASER, which in many Indian languages means impact. And what the survey does is to come up with estimates for reading and basic arithmetic and enrollment for children in every district in India.
Fantastic. So you mentioned finding volunteers throughout all of these villages. How do you reach out to these volunteers? How do you find them?
The process actually is at one level straightforward and at another level sort of huge. The way to find volunteers is that you go to a village. You first create a situation where there is a lot of discussion about reading, about arithmetic, and the way to do that is actually to do a very simple type of assessment. We have a little reading task, and I go to the village, and household by household I will start asking children to come and read. And what happens when you start doing this kind of activity is there's a lot of community interest. You're doing it at home, you're doing it outside of school hours, and it's a very unusual kind of thing. It's not just a survey. What you're doing is just asking and inviting children in the village to come and read with you. Parents come as well, and we find that when all of this is happening, there are people who are watching, and often the people who are watching and taking interest are the young people of the village who have actually themselves finished school or are in college. So we use this activity. We will then announce what we say are the results. You have in this village 200 children, 185 go to school, but only 100 can read. So what should we do about it? And people believe it because they've seen this activity happening. So you can see that some can read and some cannot, or some can add and some cannot, and so on. Once there's a discussion begins, the way we try to steer the discussion is to say, okay, so how should we solve the problem? There is a problem, but this problem is not of proportions that requires huge external help. This is not HIV, this is not malaria. This is something that we can solve. And alongside with doing this assessment activity, we often run what we call a demonstration class. So I'll do a number of activities to show people in the village that this is a problem that can be solved. And our pitch to the village is that we have some techniques that we think works. We have some materials we can share with you, but you have to want to solve your own problem. And for that, you need to dedicate some people who are willing to give a couple of hours a day for a couple of months to work with the kids who need this help. And that's really how we motivate volunteers. And surprisingly, in every village, there's always people who come forward. And it is usually young people who, occasionally young mothers, sometimes older people, but the bulk of it is young people. And the thing about young people is young people always have lots of friends. I'm not saying that old people don't, but so if you come along because you are really interested in helping children, your friends may not be that interested in helping children, but since you're coming, they feel, why not I come together? So it's not uncommon for a bunch of people to come together who are all friends anyway. And that gives the activity, a greater purpose.
Right. And it sounds like Pratham empowers people through education from the bottom up really, really well. You're extending yourselves out throughout these villages, but you've become this leader in education. How have your interactions with the government been?
Um, I know that at Claremont McKenna, the word leader has a lot of substantive meaning. We certainly are big actors. I don't know at what point you become from actors to leaders, but if you have plenty of actors, you perhaps become a leading edge. So I would like to say we think of us as a sort of a wave that's moving forward. The government, we have governments at different levels. You have a village government, you have a district administration, you have a state government, and of course you have the federal government. And we've been at this for a number of years. So we have one strategy where we say we want to impact the school system. For that, we begin to have conversations at all levels. And we've learned that when you persist and you're patient and you want to work with people, eventually people let you work with them. Sometimes they let you work at the first knock, and sometimes it's the 10th knock. But across the board, people admire persistence. And if you have something of value that you can add that is actually replicable and easily adoptable, more often than not, people are open to using it. So I would say that, at the state government level, we've worked with almost 15 states from time to time. It's not always the same state year on year. We have had funding. It's hard to work with the federal government because they don't actually implement programs. But we've had funding from the federal government for some things that we do. But the most, I think, durable relationship is with the village government, because there the village council or the village headman, the school, these are all very close to each other. And so while it takes more effort to go and motivate village council after village council or village headman after village headman, once you've done that, and alongside with that, taken volunteers along and brought parents along, then that's the partnership that I think is the most durable over time.
What challenges has Pratham faced, and how have you overcome any of those?
I think the first challenge we faced was our own frustration. We've been working with two kinds of children. One kind is children who've been left out, so who never went to school, and so the challenge there is to find them, identify them, bring them into groups, begin to prepare them, and then mainstream into the regular system. And the second kind of children are children who've been left behind, who actually go to school but are not making adequate progress in school. And so, soon from left behind, they're going to get, dropped out.
Right.
Now, with these two kinds of children, as they get older, the frustration that we felt is we were working with them. They were making progress, but the progress was not sufficient to really give them a fighting chance to finish, let's say, even the elementary stage. So our first challenge was what to do with our own frustration. And that frustration actually led us to really experiment with what would be methods that could accelerate this whole business, that could just pick up the pace. So if you're a 10-year-old child and you've not been to school, then I need to prepare you to get into 4th grade or 5th grade. It's not enough to just give you the ability to, write your name. So around about 2002, 2003, we worked on all full-time people in Pratham stopped what they were doing and actually began to have 20, 30 kids like the kid I just described and see where we could take them in like 2 or 3 months' time. And out of that came what we call our learning to read technique, or the accelerated reading technique, which we felt could work, on scale. So in a sense, I feel and then we use that technique both with, communities as well as with schools. The challenge we face now is, okay, now you've learned to read and you've learned to do addition and subtraction and multiplication. How do we now bring you up to grade level? Because to really finish 8 years of school or 10 years of school, you need to be moving at a certain pace.
Exactly.
So how can we do that? And that's the challenge that we're facing now, because to enable kids to do that, we first need to have a whole bunch of adults who are equipped to, let's say, good writing. After a certain stage, you're judged on how you write. So what is good writing? How can good writing be facilitated? What are the activities that need to be done? I, as an adult, am I a good writer before I can teach you as a kid, how to write? So I think we're facing, both as Pratham as well as India, we're facing challenges of higher level skills that as adults we need to have so that we can communicate it to our children.
It's fantastic. So I actually serve as a mentor for a young girl who's 14. Both of her parents are immigrants from Mexico, and my ultimate goal is to steer her towards a college education and to keep education at the forefront of her life. And recently she's just been distracted and she doesn't want to go to school, she doesn't like doing her homework. I would assume that you work with a lot of students like this who don't receive a lot of support from home as far as education goes. How do you motivate them?
Now, tell me more about this girl. How does she do in school?
She does decent. She gets C's and B's, and in certain subjects she does well, in certain subjects she doesn't, but she just seems very distracted right now and just would rather hang out with her friends and do other things. And because she doesn't have that push from her parents that school is very, very important, those things become more important to her.
Is there anybody in her immediate community or circle who was like her at 14 but has moved further ahead?
You know, I don't know, because she doesn't really like to talk about it, because she knows that I love to talk about education, that I bring her to the college campus frequently so that she can be exposed to life as a college student and how engaging and how fun it can be while still learning. So I don't really know of any particular people in her life, but I'm trying to serve as that source of motivation for her, and it's difficult because I never experienced that lack of motivation.
Now, if she was in our context, the way perhaps there would be a couple of things we might do. One is working one-on-one with kids is sometimes harder than working with them in a bunch. Because in a group, what is her name?
Her name is Aimee.
Aimee. So today Aimee is distracted, but tomorrow Aimee may be fine. And today there may be somebody else in the group who would push Aimee. So you're pushing on one side. So let's say you are, one of the mentors in her life. Then she has a peer group, and in the peer group there will be always some people who are up and down, but the people who are up then kind of push a little bit the people who are down. The third thing we would do is we would have somebody like our village volunteer is sort of a success in his community. Success to the extent that he or she completed a cycle of schooling that the kids we are trying to help are behind. So that person serves almost like a role model to say that there is something beyond this. And because that person has 20 children with him or her, he's seen as a leader because he's kind of, and so I think you should continue to do what you're doing, but situating Aimee in a bigger group and understanding that group and finding a person like you but in her immediate circle may just help to push this thing along.
Yeah, that's great advice. I hadn't thought of that. Do you have any specific success stories of students who participate in the education programs that Pratham offers and where they are today?
Yeah, I can't tell you names of kids, but I was talking to some of my colleagues just before I left, and there's 4 or 5 people who work now at the city level in Delhi. And we were talking about when I got to know them. And 10 years ago, I used to head the Delhi program. And I was saying how simple life was then. And everybody had like a couple of groups of kids that they worked with. And one of these, my colleagues said, the kids that we were teaching in preschool then are finishing 10th grade now. And I said, wouldn't it be great to just go back to the class that you taught 10 years ago and actually go and trace the kids? Because if they've reached 10th grade, it would be so interesting to know what happened to them and how this initial and the women I was talking to were like these community volunteers at the time. They have risen to become city level leaders, and presumably their children have grown to be 10th graders. And somebody today at one of the sessions that we had with students said, are you thinking in Pratham of leadership of the adults? Are you thinking of leadership of the children? And I frankly hadn't thought about, and it could be that when we track these children, we'll find that they were leaders in their own way. In their growth from when they were in our little preschools to where they are today.
Right, that's great. Do you think that different styles of leadership are necessary for different sectors? So you're in the nonprofit world. Do you feel that your role as a leader in the nonprofit world is different than somebody, say, in the private sector or in the governmental sector?
Yeah, I suppose different sectors need, but I think different people also have different leadership styles. I'm sure even in the private sector, there are different people who lead in different ways. And I know that at Claremont McKenna, you've given a lot of thought to, so I'm very careful about saying anything about leaders. But I think that it's sort of, I think Mr. Kravis put it really well the other day. Somebody asked him this question in front of me, and I've been listening very carefully to what he says. And he says a good leader is one with a vision, and one who's able to carry people, with them. And I presume that in different sectors or in different parts of the same sector, you have different needs for, what it means to carry people along, what are the incentives that people have to be with you, and what kind of vision motivates, I think of all these unpaid village volunteers who are actually working for no money. There's clearly something that's motivating them.
Right.
And the thing that's motivating them is I think there are a couple of things. One is that maybe I should give you an actual example that might illustrate this. There was this girl that worked with me a long time ago, and she herself was a volunteer to begin with. And then we could see that her name was Ghazala. We could see that she had, she could pull people along. So she soon became responsible for a whole number of people who were, working with kids. And one day she came to me and she said, I work in a really poor neighborhood and I don't like it that a lot of my children don't have, they have torn clothes. So I said, well, so do I, but we can't think about providing clothes for such a large number of, So she said, but you are my leader, so I thought you'll have some good idea. So I said, I don't know if I'm your leader, but I don't have a good idea, but I know that you'll think of something. So she went away, and a couple of weeks later she came and told me, organize that, solve the problem. So I said, just out of curiosity, what did you do? And she herself was from a neighborhood that wasn't as, just slightly better off than the area in which she worked. She said, I just went to all my neighbors and said, it's not acceptable that the children I work with don't have proper clothes. So everybody give me a set of clothes. And she said, I just bullied everyone and I got enough clothes. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Then she comes along and a couple of months later she says to me, I have a problem, but I'm not coming to you with the problem. I'm just telling you what the problem is. Because I know I have to solve it myself. I want my children to have uniforms. Because a lot of private school children have uniforms. I want my children to have uniforms. They don't have good houses. Parents are not educated, but I want them to have uniforms. So I said, great. So she said, I'm going to do something about it. And she went off to some political party who was trying to fight elections there and got uniforms out of them.
Wow.
So I think that the style of leadership that we are promoting is find your own solution, and I trust that you'll find it. And you can come and talk to me about it, but I cannot solve your problems. And I trust you and we have a vision that we want the best for our children, but I trust you that you have the enterprise and the energy needed to go off and do what you want to do. I don't know if that's leadership. I think it's a good strategy.
I like that story. In my organizational development class, we talk a lot about how organizations evolve. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering a little bit about how the culture of Pratham and maybe even the vision has evolved since it was founded in 1994, and compare that to what it is today.
I think some of our, beginning principles with which we began are still pretty much the same. They were big, broad, kind of like bullet points, So one was that we will work, whatever unit we take to work in, we will want whatever we are doing to reach every child. So if I'm working in one neighborhood and I want every child there to be going to preschool, then I'll make sure that every child in that neighborhood, reaches preschool. Today, I'm not talking about neighborhoods anymore, I'm talking about states. But the vision has been quite the same, that whenever I take any geography, I need to think about every child in that geography. The second, I think, founding principle was that we will not create parallel systems. We have a school system or we have a preschool system, and that system is funded by citizens' funds, and therefore as a citizen it's my responsibility to also support the strengthening of this system, and we still continue to do that. Earlier we would do it at the neighborhood level, today we do it at a much larger level. The third is that whatever we do should be simple enough that ordinary people can participate, and whether it is the model of running a library or a preschool or whatever kind of program, if it has too many, if there is too much fine print, I find that if you're too rigid, then it's very difficult for people to participate. If you're open, if you have a couple of common things that people believe in, but you remain open, then you get in a lot more people who feel that they can participate. So for example, people ask us, what are your political views? What are the political views of people in Pratham? So as Pratham, we don't have political views. You can have a political view as a person, but as Pratham, we believe that every child should be in school and learning well. And I think that also opens the gates to, greater participation and a greater feeling of ownership of the main mission. So very big, broad goals, couple of steps, and then freedom within this framework for those who are working to come up with the best possible, and a lot of review of how far we've come, and frequent rethinking about the path and the goals, but done kind of together, so that if we're going to change course, it's coming out of a conversation where it seems evident that some course changing is required.
Right. So as the recipient of the Henry R. Kravis Prize in Leadership, Pratham received a monetary award of $250,000. What do you guys plan on doing with that money?
Well, first, it was an incredible surprise and a big honor, and we were very excited, and we need to do a lot more internal discussion about what we want to do with it. But we've decided not to use this money to run our regular programs. We want to put it aside to actually think about leadership. How we do it, what will be actually the activities that we do, what will be our goals, we need to work it out. And one of the reasons I'm very excited about coming to Claremont McKenna is that I feel that you guys have done a lot in thinking about this. And you've done a fair amount, it seems, in actually working with people, both in your own communities as well as elsewhere, on how leadership can be conceived, how it can be promoted, and how it can be judged. And so from the conversations that I've had all day today, I feel there are a lot of ideas, and we need to really sit down and work out what would work for us. So we're looking to you for help.
Good, good. How has your visit on campus been? What have you been doing exactly today?
Well, I've been very busy, and it's been really fun, because this is the first time I've been to a liberal arts college, and it certainly seems like a very unique place.
It is.
In many different ways. So I met with the Kravis Leadership Institute people in the morning. I had some time with the president. I've been to two different classes. One was the organizational development class that you spoke of. One was a South Asia history class, so very different perspectives. I had a very good lunch, and as they say, there's no free lunch, so I had to speak at the lunch. I'm having this conversation with you.
Fantastic.
But in every conversation, I think there's been a lot of things that I can take away. I'm also hoping, we are hoping as Pratham, that this visit is just a beginning, and that we'll be able to build links between the two, our organization and your institution, that will endure well beyond the Kravis Prize. Because we feel that we have a lot of young people who are doing a lot of learning, you have a lot of young people who are doing a lot of learning, and perhaps an exchange or internships that we can start off with, maybe start little this year and build on, could lead to productive results on both sides.
It sounds like a very promising future.
Yeah.
I don't have any more questions. Oh wait, I sort of do. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I was thinking that as a senior, and it sounds to me like a lot of you and others have done more than college while you've been here. Knowing what you know about Pratham and knowing what you've done, how do you think that we could work together, students here and us there? What do you think are ways that would work for you guys?
Well, when you said today, earlier you spoke of the data that you have. Mm-hmm. I think that would be fascinating as a student to receive real world data. We get to evaluate each other all the time in the classroom, and we learn all about college students, but to have real world concrete data, especially from another country, students from various disciplines, from psychology, from international relations, from government, students with various interests could utilize some of the data that you guys research and find, and conduct fascinating projects that could hopefully help to steer things in a different direction, or reevaluate how Pratham does certain programs. And as a student who traveled to India for a summer, I was funded by Claremont McKenna and with the Kravis Leadership Institute to spend a summer in India. I worked for a human rights organization. I think it would be a fascinating experience for any student to be able to go to India, to participate in these educational initiatives, to work in your office, while simultaneously experiencing a new culture. The culture in India is amazing and very fascinating, and that was an aspect of my time with my internship that I really loved was learning about the culture. And, just, having students as interns, it gives you a new perspective. College students were young, and some of our ideas will totally flop, but some of them could be very, very successful for you. So I think having some new eyes, some young eyes, different perspectives could really help your organization.
I'm looking forward. I feel like there are a lot of people, at least this afternoon, that I felt would be interested in coming. I have a last question for you. There is a big focus on leadership at the college. What ways do you feel that it has sort of, you've absorbed that? And how do you think that coming here as opposed to going somewhere else has made a difference to this aspect of sort of your development here?
I feel like we have a very hands-on education here. In a lot of the classes, we have speakers come in. It just isn't the professor up lecturing, writing on the wall, or writing on the board day after day. We'll have speakers come in. In a lot of my classes, I've gone on field trips. I have a brother who actually goes to a very prestigious institution, and I tell him of my experiences here, and he's always fascinated. You're going on a field trip as a college student, or you had this experience or that. And so I feel like it's the hands-on education that we receive. And we have a very big focus on internships, on utilizing the experiences around us. There's so many organizations and so many opportunities, and Claremont McKenna does a really good job of providing those to us, of communicating them to us, and of promoting them to us. So not only am I just in the classroom or reading my books, I'm out interacting with organizations and interviewing and meeting people and attending conferences, all supported by the college. So that has been a really, really big part of my education here. And also my work at the Kravis Leadership Institute has also been very hands-on. I hear about a lot of research assistants. My friends at other institutions are, in the library looking through books for professors. And the Kravis Leadership Institute flew me to Texas to experience the leadership conference and to present some of the research that we had done. And we frequently interact with people from various organizations like yourself and get to expose ourselves to these different opportunities. And so I feel like it's those types of things that are in and outside the classroom, but they're very practical and very hands-on that have influenced my education.
So you think it's too late for a 50-year-old to return to college?
No, do it. Do it. I'm hoping to not graduate in May. I want to stay longer. Well, it's been a fantastic conversation with you today. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to hearing about Pratham's future successes and hopefully a long-term relationship with Claremont McKenna. Thank you for visiting us today.
Thank you so much, and I too look forward to having you personally, as well as a lot of people from the college community in India. And I've really enjoyed my day here, and I wish I could have more time here too. Thank you.